All right, welcome to episode 16, we'll call this, of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your host, Jordan Goldstein, former sport history, sport philosophy, sport sociology, psychology professor, published academic author, heretic who was run out of the academy, current life coach, fitness coach, endurance training coach, tribal professor, all of the above, none of the above. Welcome. Today is a very special episode. I'm going to be recounting a little bit of my experiences from this past weekend where I was coaching as the Tribal Prof alongside tribal training head coach Ryan Dreyer down at IronMan Florida in Panama City Beach, right up there on the Panhandle on the Gulf of Mexico, the beautiful Gulf of Mexico, where we watched 10 tribal athletes cross the finish line to become Ironmen. I think there were 4 returning Ironmen doing their second or third race, and we had 6 first-timers smash through the line. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it felt like to be on the sidelines as a coach, running around and darting this through across on the side of this entire course. But I also want to take time to celebrate the narratives that I watched being constructed, cemented, and enhanced through each of the athletes, but also the coaches. Now, I rattled off a lot of different academic subjects there at the beginning of this podcast, but I am a trained historian. That's my academic bread and butter. I came up through the history departments, and even though my PhD is in kinesiology, I am a straight historian, and I always go back to my one mentor, Dr. Craig Simpson, who's a brilliant historian of the kind of like the U.S. Civil War period. And history is a really big, broad, and wild subject that everybody, I think, has an interest in, but not a lot of people have a strong grasp of why history is important, and in particular, what is the proper role of the historian in presenting history. And I think this goes for a lot of historians too. And the sage wisdom from Dr. Simpson about the role of a historian has always stuck in my mind and has been a real guiding principle in not only how I conducted my historical studies, but in how I view the role of any person who wants to string together disparate streams of analysis into a coherent understanding. And this sage wisdom from Dr. Simpson about the role of historian was this: historians contextualize the past. So context is our bread and butter. Context is our skill. But what does that mean? What does it mean to contextualize the past? Here's, I think, the best example and the best description I've ever heard, which is why it's been stapled in my forehead ever since. To contextualize the past means to make events understandable in their own time period. So to make events and actors understandable to us in the present by the standards of their own time period. So what does that then lead a historian to do? It leads them to create a story. Because if I want to provide context to you, the easiest way that I can accomplish that is by framing it in a narrative. And historians, going all the way back to the world's very first historian, Herodotus, that's what we do. We have a lot of research, we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of information, but we don't just present it without couching it in a type of an interpretation, which always comes through as a story. So historians are these master storytellers who weave together their own expert interpretation or synthesis of disparate streams of analysis, right, to provide a story to the reader or the listener or the watcher that brings them inside of the past and makes them understand, empathize, and comprehend how an activity how an actor, how an event effectively transpired or was motivated in the past. So now that I've been in the philosophy realm for many years, I have not lost that love and desire to be a storyteller, but not just like a fictional storyteller, but a storyteller who weaves in truth and interpretation. This is why I oftentimes gravitate, towards the world of myth, the world of legend, the world of metaphor, the world of symbolic representation, right? Because that artistic texture helps us better understand, let's just say, the past and the people who relied on or believed in those myths or on those legends. So I started off saying I want to talk a little bit of my race experience, but I'm not sure that's really going to happen on this podcast. What I think I'm going to be talking about here is the narrative construction of legend and how racing in 2024 allows us to assume legend in a real way, to construct powerful narratives about who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, what our potential is, how we can realize it, and then using the events of our lives, right, to string together these coherent narratives, these stories, these deep, deep threads that don't just punctuate our lives, but define and project our lives out into the future. So I'll start with my own narrative. Coming into 2024, I have been searching, I guess you could say, for a strong narrative to attach myself to a strong identity. After leaving the university in April 2022, not signing any more of those darn contracts, getting out of the classroom, and really diving all in as an online coach in January of 23, I have been wrestling with my purpose, with my direction, with my aim, and what these next few chapters in my overall story and narrative look like. You've been listening to the pod. Hopefully you guys have been reading my Substack. The biggest thing for me this year in terms of my narrative transformation, my narrative construction, has been fully assuming the authority and role as a coach, right? 2023, I was doing the work. 2024 is when I became a believer in myself to have the authority to do the work. And it wasn't by crossing finish lines myself. It was by traveling and watching other people cross finish lines that I helped coach to get there. Now, this all started back in April with our Team Zion 100 experience, where we tried to go 10 for 10, taking 10 athletes across 100 miles all together in one unit, which was an incredibly bold and ambitious endeavor, which was amazing, but we didn't end up getting 10 for 10. Only 3 of us managed to go. I spent a lot of that race in the back, stewarding, guiding, and helping kind of like the final 3 of our crew make it into the 51-mile aid station safely. And then I took myself out of the race because I had given away all my spirit in helping my teammates. And that was this first realization, this powerful realization that my value might be in guiding athletic struggle, not just online, but directly in person. And I saw this intensify at IronMan Florida. So just to give you guys a quick little synopsis of my experience here, so we will get to the experience. We have a team house, but we also have a bunch of athletes who are staying with their families down in Florida. Everybody goes down basically Wednesday or Thursday. Head coach Ryan Dreyer is leading some swim sessions, some bike sessions on Thursday morning and on Friday morning. There's a big team dinner on Thursday night. All the athletes are checking into the race together so that their bikes can be together in transition on the Thursday. They're going over and dropping off all their bikes on Friday. I can't travel down to Florida until Friday, so I get there in the middle of the day, and it's right into one of the new things that we're trying out for these team house experiences, which is like a breath work and a mindset session. And on the plane ride down, I'm brainstorming ideas, I'm brainstorming questions, I'm brainstorming ways that we can facilitate a really powerful discussion, conversation, exposition, so that our athletes are primed and ready to go in their minds and their spirits, because Coach Ryan has already got them prepared and ready to go in their bodies. Now, the question that we ended up talking about in this mindset session is a great question. And now that I'm thinking of it, it's just perfect, because it is this narrative question. Like, it forces you to put yourself into a narrative position. And my question was this: how do you view this race as the end of the beginning? How do you view this race as the end of the beginning? Right? It's kind of like the closing of one chapter and the opening up of a new. So I'm asking everybody in the house, everybody who's come to participate in this mindset session, where is your story going? Where does your story come from? And where is this race in that story? So it's a perfect narrative question. And we had a lot of great shares. We had a lot of really powerful revelations. Everybody left that like filled up, inspired, eyes on the right prize. And I was talking about this narrative that I'm talking to you about me assuming the role of the coach, ending one chapter maybe as fake it until you make it, and and opening up a new chapter of like the real effing deal, the real deal. And so we get up on Saturday morning. It's early. I think I set my alarm for 3:30 in the morning. Race start is 6:40 for the people at the swim shoot. We have a plan to meet on the beach at 6:15. Coach Ryan has this gigantic, awesome tribal training flag, so it's a magnet. We're also want to get to the race kind of early, just in case something happens and ding ding ding, somebody forgot their wetsuit. Minor detail when you're about to go swim basically 2.5 miles in the open ocean. So we're up early, we're in the team house, vibes are good, it's like quiet, soft energy, not a lot of hectic, frantic racing around. Everybody's just doing what they need to do, getting in nutrition, preparing themselves for the day. We head over to the race, right? All the guys go in, they check in, they get their bags dropped off. Coach Ryan and I were out on the side. Athletes start moving out of transition, getting ready to go down to the beach. There's this beautiful kind of sunset that is emerging. We're all gathered down on the beach. Everybody's kind of in their wetsuits. We all get into a huddle right before the guys go off into the swim shoot to get their start. We have an impassioned speech and kind of like a pump-up session led by Coach Ryan, which was just great. He's lost his voice already from yelling too much, and the race hasn't even started. We walk over. We see all of our guys in swim start. We hear the national anthem. We take off our shoes. We get into the ocean so that we can see everybody run into the ocean, which we do, and is amazing. The way that the swim is set up at IronMan Florida, it's like 2 laps. It's like an out and back. And then you get up on the beach and you run and then you go back in. So then we move the flag. We run everybody's bags back to the car. We come back and we start to see the athletes coming out of lap 1, then coming around in lap 2. And we're giving words of encouragement. We're giving words of praise, right? We're pumping our guys up and we're just letting them know that we're here to support them. It's a really awesome morning. It's, again, this beautiful sunrise. We see all of our athletes. We are able to go and see a few of them hit the bike transition as well to get off on the bike. Vibes are good. Now we've got to figure out how to see our athletes on a 112-mile bike course, okay? We go get an ungodly amount of coffee. We go get some really clean nutrition at a grocery store. We sit and we eat that. We get all fueled up. And this is now, coming into like 10, 11 o'clock during the day. We head out to this mile 50 on the bike. There's a special needs bag where people on the bike can go and get something that they've selected for themselves. We're able to see pretty much every teammate, all of our 10 guys at this mile 50 station, which is basically like just in the middle of a rural highway. There's like pine forest on both sides, cars parked on either side of the road so that they can support and cheer on the athletes. We do some good mind checks. We do some good technical checks. We just, again, are bringing the love, supporting and encouraging our team. But it's starting to get difficult to see everybody, right? We got 10 athletes. They're stretched out. We're trying to see people in the front. We're trying to see people in the back. We're trying to let everybody know that we're there. We're able to see a few more guys on the bike, and it's this kind of very long stretch from like 10 o'clock to 3, 4 o'clock, where we're not really seeing a lot of people. We're waiting, and we're trying to cover a lot of distance. Now, the run is set up in a really interesting spot. There's this really large kind of like boulevard right along the beach in Panama City there. And the run course is 6 miles out and 6 miles back, and the athletes do this 2 times. And then the bike course ends on this same road. So Coach Ryan has rented a golf cart, which in Panama City Beach, you're just allowed to drive on the road, which is pretty cool, but also a little bit sketchy. And so we get the golf cart. We're able to see 8 of our athletes on the bike coming into the run, and then we're able to just dart around this run course, back and forth, up and down this 6-mile stretch. We would see an athlete, we'd park our golf cart, we'd get out, we would walk or we would run with that athlete, sometimes a quarter mile, sometimes a mile. We would pause, we would talk with each of them at the aid stations. Some were doing well, some were struggling. Some needed advice on nutrition, some just needed a mental check and a reset, others just needed encouragement. Whatever it was, we were there to provide. Him and I end up running about, we don't even know the miles, but we recorded about 20,000 steps, each of us, just in this run portion alone, shuttling back and forth, back and forth. And we had some amazing touches with our athletes. And when we're talking now about narrative construction, I want to get into some specific experiences here that really stick out, right? Because if I'm assuming this identity as the coach, I'm living it out. Like, that's all I'm here to do. I'm not in the race. I've never done a triathlon. I've certainly never signed up or gotten to the starting line of an IronMan triathlon before. But here I am, seeing my positive energy bleed through and absolutely positively affect our athletes. You can see things like form peaking up. You see athletes who are struggling to walk on the run all of a sudden start trotting. You see athletes who are maybe slouched over on the bike perk up and really start to dial in on power and technique, right? It's obvious that our energy is making a big difference. And that just fuels your confidence and belief in yourself to want to go harder, right? We end up separating, and I'm able to now get to the finish line, and we start seeing everybody coming in. And everybody has their own kind of moment. And what I want to do is I want to just talk very quickly about this idea of the narrative construction. It's tough because I don't necessarily want to talk about everybody, because then the podcast will never end. But I don't want to just select out a few narratives, because then it's like I'm leaving somebody off the table. So what I'm going to do here is I want to talk about one narrative. Just one narrative, so that you guys can get a sense of the breadth of this entire race, but how this narrative is also connected to this idea of the end of the beginning, right? And I'm going to talk about my guy, Cam Pearson. Love you, Cam. Thank you for allowing me to use your beautiful story and your beautiful heart here. Cam is a dog. Cam is one of our Zion 100 athletes, and he was the first one not to get to the finish line because he took himself out of the race before it started. Cam got sick the day before. I think it was some sort of like pneumonia. It was clearly this really awful respiratory illness. He had to go to the emergency room the night before the race. Courageously, he took himself out knowing that he would be a liability to our mission, but also it's not very safe to be trying to run 100 miles when you were just in the emergency room. Although Cam is about to bust open that narrative a little bit later on. And rather than him going on the journey himself, he selflessly stays a cruise. He's at every aid station. He even tries to pace. Like, he puts on his running gear. He's got his poles. He's got his pack. Like, he wants to do whatever he can in service. And this opens up a whole new realm of experience for Cam inside of the endurance world, where he's just sort of been a competitor, but now he's seeing the true value in opening up his heart and serving other people in endurance. This leads him to take a kind of like a rash decision to just go to a monster race, Cocodona 250. He doesn't know anybody who's in the race, but he wants to go to support, maybe just a volunteer. That's sort of his idea. Maybe I'll go at one of those aid tents and I'll just be a volunteer to help people coming through. He puts out on his social media, I'm going to Cocodona to help and to volunteer. Does anybody need pacers? One of the top ultra runners messages Cam and says, my whole crew dropped out. I would love for you to be my crew chief and to pace me. So all of a sudden now Cam is in the action. I forget how many miles you went. I feel like it's something like 70 miles or something, Cam, where you paced one of these top ultra runners. And that brought Cam directly into the ultra running community, and not just like the base level, but like some of the highest level, most impressive ultra runners, right, are people that Cam now calls friends. And he spent a lot of time over the summer traveling to races just to support, just to crew. Like, he flew down to IronMan Chattanooga just to support Coach Ryan and two of the other athletes that were on there. He also had his own 100-mile race where this idea of service came back to him fully, because some of the racers who he had volunteered to pace in other races came out and crewed and paced for him. He had a bit of an issue. He had some problems, a little bit of a visit to an emergency room, but a triumphant return. Legend Cam finishes the race, needs to call and rely on another one of our teammates to come and help him because he's in such bad shape, can't even drive his car home. And our guy Stefanos, his buddy out there in LA and one of the prime members of our team, selflessly steps up to help him. So there are these kind of like dual narratives, these dual competing narratives for Cam Pearson that are being effectively established throughout the year. It's like endurance athlete, but also this almost like endurance helper or endurance server. This guy who pours his heart out in helping other people realize their own dreams through endurance, and that in turn fuels him to want to give more of himself away. Right? And in our share, right, in our mindset circle, these are the kind of things that Cam's talking about, right? He wants to assume more leadership. He wants to assume more authority in the endurance world, but in particular on our team. What we're doing on our team is totally different. Nobody in the endurance world has a team that not only competes and trains the way we do, but delves deep into the psychology and the spirituality of what we're doing with our bodies, our minds, and our spirits when we take on the giant toll of endurance training and competing. And with this idea that Cam both wants to be a top performer in terms of high-level execution, but also be a leader, like, here we go. Cam is now at the starting line. He's waiting to get into the swim, and he's ready to prove himself in all these different directions. He comes out of the swim, and Coach Ryan goes up to him, and he says, how was that? And I think the words that came out of Cam's mouth were, that mentally broke me. We're like 45 minutes into the race. This is like a 15-hour race. When you're mentally broke at the very beginning, that's not a great place to be. Like, that's a horrible place. It was choppy. I think he ended up swallowing a lot of salt water, got into his stomach, was sick a bunch of times. It was just rough. But you know what Cam doesn't do? Cam don't quit on himself. That's for sure. He does not quit on himself. So there's no chance that he is not moving forward. So yeah, I'm mentally broke, but it's okay. Keep going. You're strong. He gets back in the water. He comes out. Looks a little bit better. Okay? So when he comes out of the swim for the second time, he looks better. Still not great, right? He's still mentally in the fight. But he's not as bad off as he was. He's progressing. We are able to go up, and we're able to see Cam off on the bike, and he throws us one of these. Like, we're saying, you're looking good. And he goes, he gives us a fist. All right. You're in it, but you feel good and you feel like you're ready to start taking things on. Now, every time that we see Cam on the bike, he's in it, but he's improving. He's the last guy on our team, and we end up driving to see him a little bit earlier than that mile 50 special needs drop. He's on the bike. He's chucking. He says he's not feeling great, but he's moving. He's moving and he looks solid. Now, given that he had mentioned to us a few hours before that he was already mentally broken, this is an incredible rise. This is an incredible rise. We see Cam on the bike coming in to the finish, and he is looking strong, and he's feeling good, and he's starting to show some real power, right? It's like he's been building momentum all day. And there's something that I just have burned into my mind, and it's the way that Cam's calves look when we come up to him on the run from behind in our golf cart. This is a guy who said he was mentally broken maybe 12 hours before, 11 hours before. And I'm telling you, this guy looks strong. You could just tell from the way that his muscles were engaged that he was in it, ready to go, totally focused, not quitting, determined to get to the end. But the next time we come up to him on the run, it's a little bit different. His stomach is turned, and he's in bad shape. He's in real bad shape. Just I'm not feeling good. This is really bad. He's starting to get back down on himself. Yeah, he got punched in the face at the swim start, but he's been clawing and fighting back every time. Now it's he's really broken. There's this almost a loss of confidence within himself. It's I thought I was this endurance performer, but this whole day has been a grind. This whole day has been a fight. And just when I thought I was getting momentum, I'm done. I don't even know what to do. I can't drink water. I can't have food. I'm just throwing everything up. This is so bad. Sometimes you don't really need to say anything, but you just need to walk strongly alongside that person. So Coach Ryan and I were walking along Cam. We're telling him, you're okay. You're fine right now. You can keep this pace and you're going to finish this race. Just keep going. I go back. I get the golf cart. I take it to the finish line. Coach Ryan stays with Cam for a long time to help him get through this mental battle. We don't see Cam again until he's turning around onto that final 6-mile stretch. And there's another one of our athletes out there. His name is Zach Brennan. His first Ironman of any distance. Him and Cam and Stefanos had gone out to Boulder in the summer to do a training camp. So they already have kind of a close relationship, having spent some time training and just living in an Airbnb together. And Zach Brennan's having a tough time on the run, but he is always moving forward, and he's always got kind of a positive attitude. And now Cam finds himself in a position that he probably dreamed about. I am here in a position of leadership and authority to help one of my tribal teammates cross their very first Ironman finish line. And you should have seen Cam's body language, his posture, his spirit, once he realized he was in a position of authority, once he realized that he now was in that position of leadership that he wanted so badly, that was going to be the beginning of this guy's next chapter in endurance. And it was just incredible to watch him in that moment assume that leadership, right? And it was just obvious, these two guys are going to get it done. They are coming in together. Cam and Zach are going to be a team. And Cam now, who's done an Ironman, he's done 2 Ironmans before, he's going to get to rely on his experience, not just in Ironmans, but in crewing and in pacing and in serving. And he gets to have this incredible moment. They catch up with one of our other athletes, Phil Lee, who's having a really great race himself. He's running the marathon. The only other time he's done an Ironman, he walked the whole thing. So he's trotting along, but he's starting to fade in those final 4 miles. And the 2 of them pick Phil up, and the 3 of them come in strong together for the final 3 miles. And I'm telling you, people, this was so many goosebumps moments for the race. But watching these 3 athletes come across the line together, knowing what was transpiring, and in particular thinking about Cam and what's on his heart, about wanting to lead and wanting to be that authority, you should have seen the smile on this guy's face. I'll probably might even use that as the show page. Like, it's so incredible. He's so proud. He's so fierce. He's so determined. And it's like this powerful realization of self. And that doesn't happen if Cam doesn't blow up at the very beginning of the race. If he's not struggling, if he's not fighting, if he's not behind right from the get-go, he doesn't have a chance to hook up with Zach Brennan. He doesn't have a chance to be the leader, right? We all end up where we're supposed to be, in a sense. So when thinking about this race experience and what I'm taking away from the race, it's just the power of narrative. Like, when I'm talking to you about Cam's story, this is a mythology. This is a legend. This is a heroic tale, right? This is like the Odyssey. It's like all those epic myths, all the great spiritual quests. It's exactly the same thing. And the race allows people to cement their narratives. It gives them an aiming spot. It gives them a crucible. It gives them a public performance to proclaim themselves, right? Where they're not allowed to hide, where the story becomes revealed, and where we can see the transformations and the transcendence that occurs within a race, but also through races and through training. And I witnessed this for every single athlete. I witnessed this for myself. I witnessed this for our coach, Ryan Dreyer. We all went through this narrative journey. And sports, right? Sports are these powerful places where we can truly and really live as myths, live as legends, to create these powerful stories that go beyond ourselves, right? That are metaphorical, that are symbolically representational, that are deeply spiritual. So it's not just start line, in the middle, finish line, I'm an Ironman. It's the entire process of training. It's the entire process of being led by your heart, by being driven by internal desire to achieve something that you demand for yourself in terms of accountability, excellence, and a high standard. We need the races to bring that out of us because of this ability to then graft the results to our identities and to our stories about where we've come from, where we're presently at, and where we're going. I wrote in my Substack, and I'm a deep believer in this, that the power of these races is that they both allow us to be and become at the same time. So to be, that's in the race. That's the present moment. That's the understanding of where I am in my narrative journey and being at peace with it. And then there's the becoming, the turning of the page, the next chapter. What's on the other side of the breakthrough? And so my question, my mindset question, how is this the end of the beginning? It challenges each person to think about, where am I? How am I going to be during the race? And also, how am I going to become? And so for all of you listening out there, I want to leave you with this. Races are cool because they can give you physical transformations. They can help you lose weight. They can help lower your blood pressure. They can lower your heart rate. They can definitely help you physically. But even more importantly, you need these spiritually and psychologically as key signposts in your identity, in your journey, in your life story, in your narrative construction, in the story that you tell yourself, about who you are, what you value, how you demand to live by, and how you make it real in the world. And that's ultimately what I experienced at IronMan Florida, was the powerful recognition that the narrative structure that I've been imbued with through my training as an academic historian is coming to life through these individual journeys that help me better explain and understand the role of sport from a philosophical perspective. And anytime I can get there as a coach to simply witness it, help and guide people through these journeys, well, that just fills up my heart, number one. But it also teaches me even more about the power of sports to teach us about who we are and who we should be, and to give us the arena to realize that, not in a superficial way, but in a powerful way. To all my other guys who crossed the finish line, we got Trevor G, we got Trevor C, we got Stefanos, we got Aaron Burke, I talked about Zach and Phil and Cam, we got Blaine, we got Keith. You guys absolutely inspired me with your heroic performances by rising through the adversity and the challenge, and by demanding of yourself a high standard that even a finish line can't represent. You guys are all heroes. You guys are all legends. And I was just honored to be able to watch you guys do it and to play a small part in helping you achieve your goals. This is the beauty of sports. This is the power of team. This is the excellence of camaraderie. You got to be playing, team. You got to be playing, and you got to be doing it from your heart. And then, and only then, can you have that narrative construction that you deserve and to live as a true myth and a legend in real time. Why settle for anything less? Peace and love.